Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I was told recently that it sounds like I'm always saying my name is Brad Harrison. So let me correct that. I'm Brad Harris, and I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos and friends to review films current or classic on this show. And this week we've got a classic film that's become a current film. We're going to be talking about Disney's newest live action remake, that, of course, being Snow White. Hi, hoes. Welcome to that discussion. We're also going to be bringing some more films from South by Southwest Film 2025 to put on your radar. Films we saw at the festival recently, we think are fucking awesome enough that you need to see them too. So we'll be coming at you with that a little bit later in the show as well. But before we can get to any of that, let me introduce you to my fantastic co-hosts. Jim Pugliafico is with us on the show as usual, as desired, because we love and adore Jim. Howdy, babe. How's it going?
It's going good. And I don't know, Brad Harrison. Whoever told you that is a fucking jerk. I'm just telling you right now. Um, yeah, whoever told you that must be a total dick. Anyway, to get our, I had to get our adult rating off on the right foot on this episode. But yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to go. We're going to talk about a new movie that opened in theaters this last week, and I think people are talking about it. I don't know. I don't get a sense of it. I've kind of been super busy with work and stuff, so I don't know how this film is being digested in the movie sphere. But we'll see if you guys have any thoughts on it. I know I have my thoughts on it. We'll talk about that, and then we're going to talk about some South by stuff. So I'm excited for that too.
Oh, good. I'm really glad you're excited about some of the things we are going to be talking about. I've seen Snow White being discussed. I can't say it's, been talked about by everybody I know, but certainly it's been part of the conversation. Can't wait to hear some of your thoughts, babe, on that, as well as what you picked out to share from South by. But speaking of lovable, speaking of people we cannot and would not want to do the show without, William Lindis is here too. Hey, Will, how's it going on your end?
Going great, Brad. Great, Jim Pugliafico's son. It's good having all three of us here together to talk more South by and talk Snow White. This is one of our kind of classic style episodes. We do this every year around this time of year where we pair something that's happening in the theaters with some of our favorite picks from the festival, and it makes a nice little hodgepodge, a little collage, a little montage of the different things that we've seen recently. So I'm excited to dive into this with you.
And other words that end in "age" that mean the same thing, and we're all about it.
Decoupage.
I think one of
Dressage.
the Can I get a massage while I'm doing the show? That would be great. Okay, thank you. We did Cinderella and South by Southwest, like,
Oof.
Jesus, 10 years ago?
2014 or so, 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insanity. All right. Well, we got tons to discuss. I already see a few folks are in the live chat. They're hanging out with us. Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us for this discussion. If you're not able to tune into the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, etc., fret not. We, of course, want to hear from those who are in the live stream with us, but even if you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., we still want to hear from you too. So don't be afraid to hop on our Facebook page, find the post about Snow White, and tell us all about what you think about the film. It will be a delight, I'm sure, to engage with you that way and hear some of your thoughts. But we're going to get into ours. And Jim, I think you're going to kick this one off for us this week. Do us a favor. Just confirm for me that you're ready, and then I'll make that jump and we'll get started.
I'll be your Prince Charming.
Oh, I guess my
Is that the right prince? I don't even know.
I was going to make a joke about someday my prince will come. Oh wait, but anyway, okay. Well, you good to go as well, my friend? All right, I'll take that as a yes. All right, with all that said, done, out of the way, here we go. Our discussion of Snow White. All right, Jim. Tell us about this live action remake of a Disney classic and what your thoughts were. Was this worth seeing in theaters, maybe waiting until it's, inevitably on Disney Plus, skipping entirely? What'd you think?
Okay, so we have Disney's remake of their own classic. Actually, I don't know if how many people know this. This is a remake of the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which was Disney's first animated feature film. This is like Walt Disney's very first animated feature film, 1937. That's 88 years ago, folks. Like this, they waited 88 years they saved up all the Disney goodness for 88 years on Snow White, and and gave us this this surprise. I'll just say surprise. Um, First of all, I want to say up front, we're going to talk about this movie. We're going to kind of deviate from our normal pattern of giving kind of a spoiler-free review first, and then with a break and an announcement, diving into a spoiler section. We're just going to go with spoilers pretty much right off the bat here. Again, I said this story's been around for at least 88 years, longer if you count the Brothers Grimm. So we're not going to hold back on anything. The story is basically the story. This film really doesn't add any. I mean, it has a few wrinkles that might be new, but it doesn't really add any major story twists to Snow White. And that's probably a feather in this movie's. One of the feathers in this movie's cap is that they don't try to grossly change the story too much. Let me read the IMDb summary first for those of you who want to know what IMDb has to say about summarizing it. A princess, that's Snow White, joins forces with seven dwarfs to liberate her kingdom from her cruel stepmother, the evil queen. Actually, I think she's liberating her father's kingdom from her cruel stepmother, the evil queen, with the help of the seven dwarves and some animal friends and so forth. This is directed by Mark Webb. It stars Rachel Zegler as the titular Snow White. It has Gal Gadot as the evil queen. Andrew Burnap plays Jonathan, the quote-unquote prince, if you would, in this movie. And a whole bunch of other folks in this film that make up the cast. Basically, this boils down to another movie that makes me wish that Disney would really stop. And it's not even just Disney, but mostly Disney. Just stop remaking these iconic, classic animated films into live action, or just remaking them, not remaking them altogether. I went into this with some pretty high hopes, actually. Snow White being a classic, it's kind of almost like a blank slate. You can go in and kind of do pretty much anything you want. And I really think that Disney just fumbled the ball here. I don't know. In one mind, I'm thinking, oh, they did this movie as a cash grab. They're just trying to make a lot of money. But I don't know if this movie's going to make a lot of money, or did make a lot of money, or lose a lot of money. Is it going to bring a new audience to a classic story? That's a question we can argue about. I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know if kids are going to resonate with the story done in this way, in this live action way. I generally didn't dig this film. At the end of the day, I wish I had. Like I said, I went in um, positively, and there were some things that I'll talk about that I did like about this film. The film added a couple, well, more than a couple. I think this film added a handful of original songs, brand new songs to the Snow White story. A couple of which I thought were pretty good. The rest mostly forgettable. Um, the some of the original songs are still here. Hi ho, home from work I go or off to work I go is still here, and whistle while you work is still here. Uh, but we could talk about the music too. Rachel Zegler, I think she tries her damnedest to do a good performance here, and I don't blame her at all for not being able to carry this kind of a mess successfully across the finish line. Unfortunately, yeah, it just didn't land for me, and we'll talk about it more after I hear you guys' thoughts. But yeah, this is one I would say. You're probably going to skip this unless you have young kids and you want to maybe try to expose them to the story in a fresher way. I won't say it's great film, great cinema or great filmmaking. If this one comes out on streaming and you've got kids or youngsters in your family you want to introduce to the story in a new way with a fresh face like Rachel Zegler, then go right ahead. Just I would temper your expectations.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim, for setting that up, giving us your thoughts. Let's go ahead and shift things over to William Lindis. Will, how about you? I know that you have kind of a turgid history with the Disney remakes. How did this one hit for you?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, I don't really like the Disney remakes because I think for the most part they feel incredibly toothless to me. In that, it's the idea of remaking an existing property and still having to protect that property and protect that brand because it's part of your theme parks and there's action figures and there's toys that are already established. Um, Makes all of the films feel remarkably safe and just sort of tepidly done. And that's been my experience for damn near all of them. And so, with all of that said, Snow White is definitely in that category as well. I will say that I probably like this one more than a good swath of the Disney movies. I think that for me, they've been sort of chasing good since Cinderella was. I would here's a bold statement. I think Cinderella was the last good live action Disney movie. And that was 2014, 2015 when that came out. Everything
Yeah,
since
dug
has
that
felt
one.
very toothless. Here, what I think works is Rachel Zegler. I think this was an absolutely golden casting for her. She looks and sounds like a Disney princess. She is able to capture kind of a sweetness and naivety that is a part of the Snow White character and is part of why she's the fairest of them all, while also showing a little bit more evolution from the original film from 88 years ago, where she has a little bit more of a little bit more agency in the story without it turning into like one of those like fake like girl boss, hashtag girl boss kind of moments, right? I think that her agency feels a lot more earned here than you see in a lot of these remakes. The opening set of songs, which are just her and her parents, and her "I Want" song, as she's trying to figure out what type of leader she wants to be, but she can't. All of that stuff is really good. But the moment the movie takes a downturn is when she escapes into the woods and runs into the CG animals for the first time, and the CG animals look awful. And then shortly after, she runs into some CG dwarfs who mostly look awful. It was weird because I think two of them actually looked like they were designed better than the other five. Doc and Dopey actually looked like they had just more texture and more life on their faces than the others, which just felt like rubbery. Gal Gadot is fucking awful in this. She cannot sing. She has proven to
Oh
me
God.
time and time again that she can't act. So I there are so many things that work against this movie. That said, I do like some of the changes they make to the story in terms of how Snow White sings a couple of her classic songs. The Whistle While You Work has a little bit more oomph to it now. And the final scene, which I don't know how much, even though we're talking spoilers, I don't want to go into details on this, but sort of the resolution of the, her versus the queen, I do think was well done and sort of speaks to her kindness being kind of the important thing for her. So yeah, it's like if you cut out all of the parts of this movie that aren't Snow White, I think this is a really good movie. Unfortunately, all of those other elements exist. You have the seven dwarves, you have the evil queen. I did like the prince. I think he was fine. The Flynn Rider-esque prince. This is a perfectly
Fierro.
Yeah. He's very
Fierro
Fierro.
light.
He's very. Think if the closest one I can think of is Flynn Rider from Tangled. He has a lot of that kind of roguish outlaw type vibe that he has. So as I was saying, like this is a movie I think it's perfectly fine with the lowercase f. If you have kids, you'll probably go take them to go see it. And I think they'll have a good time. The kids in my theater all had a great time with it. In fact, there were a lot of families outside talking to their kids. Who's your favorite dwarf? I like Dopey a lot. It's just cute listening to. Yeah. But other than that, you can wait for Disney Plus or skip it altogether. My thought is this. Yes, this is probably, at least for me, better than a lot of the Disney movies, but also I kind of wish they stopped making them. So if you choose to not see it and stop giving Disney the money and maybe they stop making these, I'm super cool with that. So that's my lukewarm at best review.
All right. Well,
Well,
you are so much.
I
know we'll have more all of us together conversation once we're all done giving our individual opinions. I have some thoughts and some things you said. It sounds like Jim does too. Let me quickly give my thoughts and then we'll open it up to everybody. But this is a tricky one. Unfortunately, they tried to do some new things with an old story. At its heart, if you look at the original Snow White movie, there's a very iconic song, "Her Girl Wants Song," and we've got a commenter in the chat who's talking about the fact, since we're spoiling, we can talk about this. "Someday my Prince Will Come" is not part of this new movie. And if you go back and read the lyrics, that original song is very much like, "I'll meet my prince and we'll love each other and I'll be happy.
And I need
finally.
a man to save me." Yeah.
Right. Yes. And it's not very 2025. It's unfortunate, though, that they completely removed the song. That's actually my favorite part of Snow White. When I think of Snow White, that's what I think of. And so it kind of, I don't know. I think it robbed the movie. They're trying to introduce Snow White to a new generation, which I think is great. But also, too, they're trying to pull in some of the folks who grew up with Snow White. And so I think taking that song out was a mistake. The whole Evil Queen song. And Josh is in the chat saying, "I'm just here to support Brad's nomination for the Evil Queen song for Best Original Song at the next year's Oscars." Who boy. Right. Yes. That song was absolutely terrible. And I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. So I'm really just mystified at some of the choices that they made here. I will say I really love the Evil Queen stained glass crown, though. So even when she was singing and dancing around and it was all terrible, at least the crown looked cool, and I really want a replica. We mentioned the love interest character in this movie. No longer a prince, y'all, unless it was said when I went to the bathroom for 5 minutes and came back. I think he's just like a bandit, or they're freedom fighters who fight in the name of Snow White's dad who, disappeared.
Not a prince.
So in any event, it's I don't know, it's just kind of weird how they set it up. And anyway, sounds like we got some thoughts. We want to get into the discussion, so I'm going to stop my thoughts there, and I'll share where they make sense. But this is a skip it entirely for me. Go ahead, y'all, jump in.
I really want to hear more, Brad, about kind of your thought on the prince overall, because, or I guess that's the good question. Like, do we call him the prince for the rest of this discussion or not?
I don't think we do. He's not a prince. He's just some, guy with some friends in the woods with fruit and vegetables and swords and bow and arrows, crossbows.
He's Robin Hood.
So, I mean, basically, and Jim, you mentioned the Fierro thing. I turned to Jim during the movie because he's literally on the screen. He looks like dollar store Fierro, and then I shit you not, his motif is da 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 da. It's dancing through life,
Dancing through life, hanging with
Yeah.
Snow White.
fucking up this movie at every turn. Yeah, no, it was not great for me. Um, conflicted feelings. For sure.
Conflicted feelings are okay. And I do think that there is something to be said about maybe we go back to something else you mentioned. Sort of you mentioned the crown being one of your favorite parts of this. So how do we feel about the overall costume design, production design, just kind of the look and feel of the movie?
I gotta say, I don't think the movie looked that great, at least for me. These live action things are really, especially when it comes to the dwarves. I mean, man, that's a whole separate topic, maybe a whole show. I don't understand the choice to make a quote unquote live action movie and CGI everything except a few human characters. I don't understand it. Maybe we should stop calling these live action movies because they're live people movies. Well, partial live people movies, because the movie really went downhill when we got to the Seven Dwarfs. I was concerned when I saw the trailer, and my concern was proven out. That I thought I was going to give it a chance. Like, okay, maybe they're doing something cool with these dwarves that will really like. And then what did they do? By the way, I liked the Jonathan character. Actually, I liked the whole band of thieves and the common folk kind of resistance, band of resistors. I kind of like that, except rather than being like, a chosen one prince that comes along and saves the princess. I did kind of like that, and then I think that's the reason for not having "Someday My Prince Will Come," because it is, when it comes to like female autonomy, that song just is not it flies in the face of any female autonomy right now. So, but the dwarf characters, we have 7 CGI characters that look from okay but creepy, like what's the character's name from Mad Magazine?
Alfred E. Newman.
Alfred E. Newman. One of them looks like a young
You're taking all my observations that I said to you in the movie today. What is going on here, Jim? I turned to Jim and I'm like, oh my God,
see it today.
It's the Mad Magazine guy, Alfred E. Newman.
Yeah. But then what do is one of the characters in the band of rebels, I guess, happens to be a dwarf. A real person. So I don't understand why they couldn't cast real people that are dwarfs as the 7 dwarfs. Maybe there's some political trying to make some political dodge there, socio-political dodge, but it's just very problematic all over.
Well, that's sort of what happened. They had originally put out a casting call for for little people for this. And then Peter Dinklage kind of famously went out on kind of an interview and said, I wish that Disney wouldn't remake Snow White because it's insulting to little people that we can only be cast as dwarves and Snow White and stuff like that. And then several little people, so Disney backed away from that because that got a lot of traction. And then a lot of little people actors came forward and were like, yeah, fuck you, Peter Dinklage. Like, that's great when you're the guy that plays Tyrion, but the rest of us want roles too, and a Disney film might do it. So then they swapped over to doing they had a plan to do like with just actual actors just cast there, but then that turned into, well, how come it's changing so much? So then they changed to the CGI. So I will say, at least in Disney's defense, I think they got just sort of stuck between several rocks and several hard places in trying to navigate this. I don't think they made the right decisions down that when they were stuck in that, and by being kind of feckless with it, it ended up giving them the worst outcome possible. That said, I do like that they did have in Jonathan's band the little person that was cast there. I think it was exactly what the film could have and should have set out to do, which is, cast people in roles that aren't necessarily like, magical fairy dwarves, but instead just an actual like person with, dwarfism as part of that band. So I have a hard time being too hard on them for the decision they make because of how it went down. That said, the execution of it is where I struggle. Like the dwarves look so rubbery and plasticky. They don't feel like they're really interacting with Snow White at any given time. Again, except maybe Doc and Dopey. I think the two of them had more care paid to their models overall, more expressions. So they just kind of worked a little better. But the other five, especially Grumpy looked like shit. Like, just whenever he was on screen, I was just like, take him away. Which is especially a shame because of the 7 voice actors, that's the only one that was voiced by a little person. Martin Kleba did Grumpy.
But at least we got Tommy Lee Jones as a dwarf. Well, Grumpy.
Oh, yeah, he did look like a kind of smushed up Tommy Lee Jones.
Right.
Yeah, so the voice of Doc was Jeremy Swift, who we've most recently seen in Ted Lasso. As Leslie Higgins, and I liked him. I did like him. Again, I didn't like the visuals on the dwarves too much, but I did like Doc's performance and presentation. I thought that was fun.
I almost wish they had taken a different new spin on this and not try to make it the cutesy kids movie, because I don't think it succeeds in that realm. I almost prefer to see them go live action, but go a little darker, right? They had the band of thieves already there. They could have done something with that. They could have made the 7 dwarves way more realistic and actually have humanity and personality instead of just being caricatures, right? Make us actually care for some of the especially those dwarf characters. I think the movie tries to make us care for, they're all ugly, but one of them's really cute with the big ears and the smile and sounds like Josh Gad, but it's not Josh Gad.
They all sound like Josh Gad to a degree.
Yeah. But none of that worked, and I just think they could have taken the story in a slightly darker direction and been much more effective. Unfortunately, that's not the movie we got, and so my review of the movie we got didn't work out too well. By the way, one of the lowest. Now, I know that that review bombing is a real thing online, but this has one of the lowest IMDb ratings of a movie I've seen like ever.
Well, and unfortunately, a lot of this film got heavily review bombed from the moment that a non-white actress was cast as Snow White. This has been, I'm not saying that I am not dismissing legitimate criticism of this film, but the actual score is heavily, heavily anchored by a lot of, I haven't even seen this movie, but I'm a racist type reviews that exist out there. Again, that doesn't diminish any real negative reviews, but the reason this one specifically, compared to a lot of the other Disney live action ones, are so low, there are memes after memes after memes that I've seen on the internet of people like posting about how ugly Rachel Ziegler is and how unfair she is and how it's, Snow White more like, and then something racist.
Oh God.
Do you think that Letterboxd has the same level of crap in its ratings for this film as like IMDb? Because on Letterboxd it's a 2.2, so even there, it's low.
So IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes are always going to be the ones that are most unfairly review bombed. Letterboxd is going to be much more average, but if you look at any film that hasn't come out yet but is coming out soon, even on Letterboxd, you'll start to see star reviews for it. especially when it's something like the Captain Marvel movies, because of like, oh, woman superhero. Before that, those got review bombed very similarly, even on Letterboxd. So again, I don't want to dismiss any legitimate low scores, but I do think that there is a preponderance of them, and a preponderance of the discourse, capital D discourse, that's happening about this. I don't know is necessarily coming from a place of good faith.
Well, I can only speak for me and my live, lived in experience, whatever you want to call it. Rachel Ziegler was the best part of this film for me, but I still gave it a 1 star in Letterboxd. So take that for what you will, but
and that's fair. Here's the thing: you actually saw the movie.
That's true.
Unfortunately, a lot of these people are like, don't. 1 star. I'm never seeing this piece of shit. Wait, what?
Yeah, because it's a person of color playing Snow White, right? And that's all you look at. This movie has so much going against it. It had that going against it, from the public. It has the backlash against Gal Gadot. That's out there too. That's a socio-political negative hit on that. I mean, it also has the fact that Brad didn't get his stained glass crown popcorn bucket. So, if he had gotten that, I bet he would have given it another star.
Is that an actual popcorn bucket out there somewhere? Because I would buy that. The one at our theater was like a little itty bitty magic mirror slapped on a nondescript tin. It looks not great. Yeah, I'm like,
no, I'm kidding. I'm just saying that the fact that the movie didn't have one cost it a star from Brad.
That's a full star there. I will say another thing that did hurt it a little bit for me, and this is actually the same criticism I had of Wicked, and I've had of a few of these, is that there is a flatness to the production design that I didn't enjoy. Both movies feel like they sort of drained some of the color out of the film, kind of doing this I don't want to say pastel, but this just sort of slightly faded, almost like, rose-colored look at things. Wicked did that, and that was like my least favorite part of that movie. Snow White did that as well. Like, if you're going to bring something animated to the big screen, I think that's a great excuse to really make the colors pop and to make things bold. But everything just felt a little filtered down and a little off, which is also a shame because there was some fun choreography, especially the opening sequences of this film as she's sort of dancing through the city as a little girl and meeting all of the people. That was a really, really fun scene that was choreographed well with interesting characters. I liked the song. I liked the relationship that was building. I liked the way that we're seeing how their family showed kindness to the people, and that's what made the people happy. But it also just looked drab, and I don't like that as much. Yeah. It's like, just give me some color. Don't be afraid to be bold.
Indeed.
Yeah, I tried to watch the original 1937. Okay, sorry, I'm having a delay apparently when I go to speak. You guys are already into conversation. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I tried to watch the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from 1937. I put it on at home, and man, I'm thinking this was made in 1937, Disney's first animated film. It looks spectacular. Like the animation looks amazing. It's the colored cell, technology that they use. Look at the colors on that film, how that pops and how that animation looks. It's incredible. Like it puts a lot of today's animation to shame. So there's, but on the other hand, when you translate something to live action, you're kind of stuck to live action sets and things like that. And I think there's also a tendency these days in films to make them look flatter. I don't know if it's just the CG that they use, the CG backgrounds or what, but yeah, it just doesn't look great, Will. I agree.
Agreed. Well, good news is we got a whole bunch of other really good movies that we want to talk about. We don't have to keep beating this one to death. It is what it is. Some people are enjoying it. They're getting a lot out of it, especially kids. Ultimately, that's probably who this is made for. So I'm glad it's landing with them, even if not so much for some of the adult population. But like Jim says, we have our 1930s Snow White. I can go listen to Someday My Prince Will Come whenever I want. Anyway, all right.
Next time you're sick, I'll send you a vocal recording of that song, Brad. Just let me know.
Aw.
It's a beautiful
Y'all,
song.
Will, for my birthday, because I had pneumonia over my birthday. I don't remember if we talked about this on the show, but I'm going to mention it. Recorded himself reading the first chapter from The Princess Bride. We didn't get to do the Princess Bride show because I was sick over my birthday. Well, I was all snuggled up in my bed with my Pikachu plushie. I had my heating pad on my chest, and I was listening to your dulcet, darling tones in my AirPods. It was amazing. So I'll take something read by you anytime, friend.
I will get you a good book on tape next time you're feeling under the weather.
Hell yeah.
Of me recording something. We'll figure it out.
Heck yeah. All about it. All right. Hey, before we transition to some South by talk, just catching up with the chat a little bit. Ben Woolley is here. Now it's a party.
Hey, Ben.
Hey, handsome, sexy Ben. He says, howdy, bears. How are y'all? Always great to see y'all. Don't worry. I'll save each of you, handsome bears. No evil queens are getting us down because Ben's in the house and he's going to take care of us. That sounds good to me, too.
He's going to come running in, slapping apples out of our hands at the last minute.
It's like, don't eat that piece of shit. It's poison. Anyway. All right. Oh, and my stepmom is here, too, but she is not an evil stepmother. Terry. She is wonderful. Terry. Hey, Terry. Good to see you, too. Welcome. All right.
She's the good stepmother.
She really is. She's great. Aww. She's a great stepmom, a great mom in general, all the mom things, but glad to have you here too, Terry. All right. Jim, Will, ready for some South by talk?
Always.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. Well, then I'll just do a quick little segue here. I don't think we have official South by music or anything to use, but we have some films that we saw a couple weeks ago while we were in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest. Of course, Will lives there, so he was already there. Got to hang out with Will and Scott and the pups for a week. It was a lot of fun. But Will, given that you live in Texas, this is kind of your home-based show, gig thing, whatever you want to call it. For listeners who might be a little unfamiliar, what the hell is this whole South by Southwest thing? And maybe talk a little bit about what we're about to do for the next 30 minutes or so.
Absolutely. So South by Southwest is an annual multidiscipline festival here in Austin that focuses on several different aspects of media and entertainment. The part that we cover is the film side of things, but there's also a festival for music, which is actually kind of the one that I think gets the most press and is the kind of the bigger portion of it is the music side of it. There's the interactive side, which is a lot of like electronics, tech demos, even gaming, things like that. And then there's an education symposium that happens around the same time. So because of this, you have people from all over the world, all descending on Austin, Texas for about a week and a half, 2-week period to attend all of these different sessions, these shows, these concerts, these screenings. We cover the film side of things, and during that usually 8 to 9 days, we are just going from theater to theater, screening features and documentaries and also short films, all sorts of different things, all of which has not yet come out yet, although some of those things I think have already come out now that we are, at this point, a couple weeks out. So what we're going to be doing here today is talking about a few of those films. In last week's episode, we went through and gave a total of 6 to each of our favorite films from the festival, just sort of like a buffet line. If you were to see all of these films laid out before you, you could just go down with your plate and pick out the ones that you'd like. We're going to do the same today. We've each brought 2 films that really tripped our triggers in some way, shape, or form that we're going to talk about briefly. and more or less spoiler free, so that when these films are released, when they do get distribution, you can track them down on your own. Either way, I will say the important thing about this is independent cinema, or sort of like independent adjacent cinema as well, is very important. And being able to go to festivals like this is an important part of the marketing machine for getting these films eyes and getting them in front of more people. So if you ever have the opportunity to join us in Austin, Texas, come on down, see us at the South by Southwest Film Festival. We'll save you a seat.
That'll be fun. Get some people to join us.
I agree. Hell yeah. It's funny. We kind of have like, I mean, it's not our entourage because other friends go to this festival. They're not there for us. But we kind of have this group of friends that we always run into there. George and Dave and some of the other great folks. Paul, always great hanging out in group, usually in front of Lamar, talking about everything we've seen, standing in line together. It's so much fun. Consider coming and joining that fun. Become part of the Movie Bear Brigade. Is that a new thing? I don't know. But we want you there too. We want to watch some movies with you. So make some plans for South by Southwest Film 2026. Come out and join us. But Jim and Will, I think we're at that point where we can share some films that we really loved.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with your first pick for this episode. Of course, we'll have more South by coverage coming out of the next couple more episodes too. But Will, what's the first film you selected to highlight this week?
So the first film that I'm going to be highlighting is a documentary called The Perfect Neighbor. This film was one of the films that most deeply resonated with me, most impacted me, most pissed me off, but in a good way. The movie is about it's an entire documentary that's only done through police body cam footage. And what it covers is there's this neighborhood in Florida where there's this one woman, a kind of a Karen type, who is constantly calling the police on the neighborhoods, on the kids of the neighborhood who are playing kind of too close to her property. And after things escalate, eventually resulting in violence, the film then has to tackle the idea of Florida's very controversial stand your ground laws. So this is a very harrowing film in that, this is all real stuff that happened, all captured through just body cam footage. At no point do they cut to like someone sitting in a room and saying, and then I did this, and then I did that. Any narration done by the interview subjects is just overlaid with the existing body cam footage that's showing us what's happening. But more than anything, even though there's a harrowing event in this, and there's a tragic event that happens in this, and a very alarming law that gets enacted in this. This is also a film that shows a community coming together, because what you see through all of this body cam footage is everyone else in this community, both before, during, and after the incident, rallying around and rallying together. This film has been picked up by Netflix. It has not been released yet on Netflix, but they are going to be releasing it later this year. And I strongly recommend you look at it. It goes to show you just why body cam footage is so important, and just how easy it is for a person in a community to be an outlier in such a way that they cause harm and disruption to the people who are just trying to live their lives, which is something I think we all need to be especially cognizant of as we face everything that we're facing here in 2025. The movie's called The Perfect Neighbor, and it is a fantastic watch.
Thanks, Will. This is one I did not get to see. I think this was your first watch at South by, if I remember right, or maybe the second one after.
It was on our second day.
Simple
this was on the second day, because we did movies together the first day, but on the second day we started to split a little bit. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. I do want to see this one, particularly. You mentioned, a lot of this is based on body cam footage, and when you talk about body cam footage, you're generally talking about police body cam and how the, one of the things I'm super interested in is how the police get to curate some body cam footage that is released. How is it, you know, hidden or deleted, or like I just I have kind of a distrust about that kind of a system in certain cases, and I don't know if that was the case in this tragic incident or not, or if that was brought up at all. Maybe it didn't play in any way, but it's one of the things sometimes when body cam footage is talked about that I always
I
think
can
about.
tell you in this case, it all came from several FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act, that the filmmakers put out. And fortunately, there's nothing in the footage that the police in this regard seem to be doing things sort of like the right way, or by and large the right way, right? Um, there is a documentary on YouTube right now. It was put out by the New Yorker. It's like 10 minutes long, so it's a documentary short. It was one of the ones nominated for best documentary short, called Incident, that is about body cam footage as well, and it shows what happens when they try to cover it up and try to lie about what was said. So I think that point, Jim, that's a good companion piece with this one.
Good. I'll check that out too. Definitely have YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't get to see this one either. Definitely looking forward to catching up with it though when we can, and really glad to hear that it's got a distribution deal. Sometimes we see films at South by and other festivals, and 8 months to a year before it's accessible, if it even gets picked up for distribution and becomes accessible. So sounds like there's a really good opportunity coming for this one. Thanks, Will. Appreciate that. All right, Jim, what is your first film you want to share this week?
The first film I want to share this week is it's another documentary, totally different kind of documentary. This one's called The Age of Disclosure. Sounds like a kind of a boring title, which I would agree with. And at first, I had two thoughts going into and at the beginning of this film. One, that it started out as a bunch of talking heads, and I'm like, oh great, I'm here stuck for an hour and 50 minutes of freaking straight talking heads. And guess what? Kind of did, but the other thing is the movie. Let me read you the synopsis, and then I'll tell you what it's about. An unprecedented film featuring 34 senior U.S. government insiders that reveals an 80-year cover-up of the existence of non-human intelligent life, aliens, and a secret war amongst major nations to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin. I'm a huge skeptic of like the whole UFO thing. UFO stories. We've seen some of them obviously debunked. These stories are brought forward. I'm just not a huge believer in that stuff. However, I will say after watching this film, I did like a holy shit, like I had a holy shit epiphany. Because what we're seeing here are not that everybody, obviously, not that every government official is a government insider is totally trustworthy, but we've got military dudes who fly jet fighters coming forward. Back in 2023 at the House, I forget which committee it was. They had a whole hearing on AUPs. Which are what is it? Oh, UAPs, unidentified aerial
Anomalous
something.
phenomena.
Anyway, anomalous phenomenon used to be called UFOs, and this movie gets into how the evidence that they have, the government has, people in this movie have testified before the House and Congress that they have, credible witnesses that said they have seen evidence. They have seen non-human biological remains. So, take from that what you will. and it really gets into like the technology. You know, we hear about these UFOs that are in the sky and they shine and they're a bubble, and then all of a sudden, boom, they vanish like at the speed of light. They even get into like how that could be possible with technology that's beyond ours, and that to me was fascinating. I'm a tech geek. I really like this, and when this thing comes out, I can't wait till the discourse starts on this documentary. But it's called The Age of Disclosure. I don't have a release date yet, but I can totally see this thing on Netflix soon. They're working on a streaming deal for it. It's called The Age of Disclosure. I really dug it. I went in very skeptical and came out like, maybe there is something to some of this. And I was somewhat convinced. I'm not a total tinfoil hat guy yet, but um, there's you know there's some stuff here that sheds some doubt on whether we are like the only intelligent beings in the universe, and could there be intelligent life in the universe that is more technologically advanced than us? And that's what it gets into. I like this film a lot.
Thanks for disclosing this one, Jim. Ah,
No matter what your
definitely
age.
a really good doc. Definitely
No
a
matter
good
what my
doc.
age is, yeah, thanks, Will.
Definitely a really good documentary. One of the things I appreciated about this one a bunch, besides running into the director in the bathroom while the movie was playing, was the fact that this documentary kind of tries to spice things up. Like how do you make talking heads sexy? I think a lot of documentaries don't understand or get how to do that. Will, you were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier too, and one of the things that this doc does is there's like these interstitial shots of like some of the different talking head people who are involved in this, like standing at the Jefferson Memorial, like having a, you know, private conversation off the books, whatever. Like it kind of plays into like the cloak and the dagger aspect of some of this, and how these government people, you know, whether they're really UFOs or whatever they are, they believe that something is happening. They believe there's a potential threat, and they're using their power and their agency, working within the inner workings, right, to try and inform people and bring people into the fold. And some of the shit that they accomplished and got the government to like have to acknowledge and announce is kind of amazing. I remember when that all happened a few years ago, I was like, where the fuck did this come from? Like, what? Why is the government like saying UFOs are real at this point? And we got a lot of the backstory and the context around that because of this documentary. So, really entertaining to watch. A little bit zany at times, but yeah, I'm keeping my eyes peeled for weird lights in the sky at this point because I'm questioning a little more than I used to.
Yeah.
All right. Very
All
cool.
right, Brad, you're up.
Uh the first movie I picked is, oof, man, it's a heavy film. It's another documentary, and I don't often highlight documentaries. It's just not typically my genre. Documentaries and comedies, things I rarely will bring up of my own accord. But this one was pretty powerful stuff. It is a documentary called The Secret of Me. It's directed and produced by Grace Hughes Hallett. And let me just read the description for this one. This is from the South by website, and the description on the movie's webpage. It's 1995 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. During a feminist studies class, college student Christy opens her textbook to discover something that turns her world upside down. For as long as she can remember, Christy has felt different, and now she knows why. Demanding her medical records, Christy is finally confronted with the devastating truth. She has been lied to her whole life by the people she trusted most. And what follows is an unearthing of an extraordinary and disturbing secret that goes far beyond her own life, leading to the discovery and some revelations of a terrible lie affecting thousands around the world. Now, this documentary already has release in the UK from Channel 4. That's happening. This is being talked about a lot in the press right now. So it's not a huge secret that this documentary is talking about the fact that 19-year-old Christy discovered that she was born intersex, and her gender identity was imposed on her basically by a surgery that her parents elected to have from advice from a doctor back then. And turns out whole generations of kids have been having this happen to them since the 1960s through current. And so the documentary kind of details Christie's journey to find her true self, which is maybe different. I'm not going to go into it beyond that. But also kind of goes into a lot of context as to why at a certain time it was thought this was the way to handle it when kids were born intersex. In the United States, a lot has changed since then, but in other parts of the world, the same shit is still going down even today in 2025. And this one really hit home for me. We have, some friends who are intersex. In particular, a really good friend of ours was in foster care and adopted, and had no idea why he was different until he was 18 and got access to his adoption and medical records, and kind of had a similar discovery to Christy about what happened. And so the movie is great. I mean, it presents the information. A lot of personal stories are shared. Really powerful fucking stuff. Call it festival goggles, call it what you will, but the fact that I was able to speak with the person who is at the heart of this story, who was Christy and has become someone else, I'll leave it at that, was kind of an amazing experience. Being able to go up to them after the film, talk about our friends, hear more about what happened to them. An amazing experience that sometimes you only get at a festival, right? But even taking that aside, even if I just saw the documentary itself, I think it. What is the analogy for, like, when you get hit by a football, like in the jersey, like you get hit in the numbers or whatever, it like knocks you over? That's what happened to me seeing this documentary. So super, super fucking powerful. Last I heard, it was still waiting to be picked up for distribution in the US. I don't know if there's been an update. I looked on the movie's website and I didn't see anything, but hopefully it gets distribution here. But if not, definitely be on the lookout for that from Channel 4 across the pond.
Yeah, and this was a really great doc, Brad. A great film. It had me glued to the as things unfolded, the whole movie. It's you have to wonder if today's political environment has anything to do with whether or how this movie will get picked up and distributed. Hope not, but I just I don't want to give too much away. There's so much I want to talk about. When this film comes out, I think we should maybe review it on the show, because it's definitely worth talking about. It's something that I didn't expect from the film at all. Going in, I didn't know really what it was about. And right up front in the film, and I'm not going to say, it says, "This film is not about this." And I'm like, what? That's kind of what I thought it was about. What is it about then? And it proceeds to show me, and it was great. Great experience.
Yeah, this was one of the strongest docs from the festival, and that's saying a lot, because South by Southwest has each year a very, very strong documentary lineup. In fact, I find myself more and more each year drawing towards those documentaries, just because they have such a high hit rate. This one included. In terms of distribution, it's hard for films about this specific topic to receive distribution, because it is a bit of a narrow cast in some ways as well, right? And I've screened and programmed for for a festival that focused on LGBTQ films, and we played intersex films there as well. And I don't believe any of those received any type of distribution thereafter as well, just because it is harder for those to find the light of day. But this is such a well-made documentary that I really hope that it breaks free of those shackles and finds a home somewhere, because I think that it really sheds a light on something that a lot of people don't understand. And also, the idea of like what an intersex person is often used and weaponized against the trans movement right now. And I think this just gives you a lot of understanding about like really who these people are and what their specific experiences are, and how those are different than the trans experience, but how they're often kind of lumped in because of some similar political issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
yeah, I think you could say it's definitely a separate issue that this movie focuses on, but it suffers in the public eye similarly. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think there's maybe more mystery even behind, the issue of intersex births. I think a lot of it is probably hidden from most of the public, and I'll just leave it at that. I'll just say this film is so worth seeing. I'm looking forward to seeing it again when it does get released.
yeah, very much.
The Secret of Me.
There you go. All right. Well, let's go back to the top of our order. We got 3 more movies to share with y'all before we wrap this one up. Will, what is your next choice?
So the next one I've got's a comedy. This movie is called She's the He. It does not have distribution right now. So the story of She's the He is you've got these 2 characters who just before graduation, these 2 boys pretend to be trans women so that they can sneak into the girls' lockers. That's a fun little bit of teen hijinks until Ethan, one of them, realizes that she actually is trans. And so the 2 of them now have to deal with the fact that this has changed their friendship. They have to deal with the process of coming out, and they have to deal with the fact that all of this was done sort of in a light that isn't going to necessarily be seen very well by the different women that they interacted with during this experience. This is a super funny movie. And I think it handles a lot of the trans-related items very, 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 very well. First of all, the world of this it reminds me a lot of the movie Bottoms, which we reviewed here and actually saw at South by Southwest, in that this film exists in a world that is exactly like ours, but just like ramped up a little bit. In other words, like you can have more kind of like wild hijinks and it's like normal in this world. There is the 2 boys, one of them is a trans woman who is, or I guess actually non-binary, and that's the one that transitions. And the other is actually, even though he's kind of a douchey bro, like he's the one who was like, I gotta get in the lockers, hang with him, is actually played by a trans man. And I think that sort of like having so many trans characters sort of playing the different, both cis and trans roles in this helps a lot. The jokes are funny. There's some over the top, actually some fight scenes in this that are actually kind of wild that get there. But at the end of the day, this is a movie with a lot of heart and a lot of empathy that really understands like the message that it wants to put out there without feeling like an air quotes message movie. It's funny. It's fun. It's vital. I think these are the type of movies I want to see more of. This was written and directed by Siobhan McCarthy, and I'm very interested in seeing not only what happens with this film, but also what Siobhan McCarthy does next.
I'll be looking for it. Again, another one, Will, you got to see that I did not. So it's on my radar. Hopefully we can remember, like, when some of these films do see distribution, to like remind ourselves and our audience when they're out and how to get a hold of them. That
Good point. Good point.
I feel like we do kind of a good job internally of keeping each other in the loop. Like, "Oh, Jim, that doc you were wanting to see that I saw, I heard it's finally getting released."
It's hit Netflix
Yeah,
this week.
exactly. But who knows? Maybe it's a spreadsheet project for future us to tackle. But good call for sure. All
You
right,
know, I love a
Jim.
spreadsheet.
I know, right? I didn't want to volunteer.
Will loves a
I didn't want to
spreadsheet.
volunteer you,
He's
but
a spreadsheet champion.
hey, that was another documentary we saw. Well, I half saw it, but that's a story. In any event, Jim,
Yeah.
what was your second choice for this episode?
My next choice. Hey, we're talking about documentaries and comedies so far. This one combines both, I think. This one's called The Python Hunt. This is a film, a documentary film directed by Xander Robin that I got to see, and was getting a lot of buzz at the festival. Um, the film centers around that, exactly that, a python hunt, a real live python hunt. Every year, the Florida government invites Florida, so say no more. There's where the comedy element comes in. Every year, the Florida government invites the public to compete in an invasive python removal contest in the Everglades. For 10 nights, an eclectic group of hunters confront the dangerous terrain, nocturnal creatures, and their own desires. So basically, those of you might probably know a little bit about like the Texas rattlesnake roundup. This is kind of Florida's version of the Texas rattlesnake roundup, where they open up a free season on this invasive species. It's the Burmese reticulated python, which is not native to Florida, but has according to some, has overtaken a lot of the Everglades to the detriment of other species, native species who live in the Everglades. So these people go out, these people with this bloodlust to kill animals, who think they're, justified to going out and trying to find snakes at night. It just is, it's incredible to see a cross section of humanity who kind of gets into the families jump in their pickup trucks and go out into the Everglades on dirt roads with big searchlights looking for snakes on the side of the road, and I think they get paid by the government for how many snakes they kill and bring in. It's kind of a crazy thing. The whole movie, I'm thinking like, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. That I know this is an invasive species and it may be doing damage, but I just hate seeing humans out with bloodlust to kill any animal. It just kind of drives me a little bit crazy to see that. And the movie does address that as well. This movie is not like on the side of, all these snake hunters going out and killing as many snakes. The movie takes a very neutral look at these personalities and characters that go out and do this versus the science and the naturism behind this phenomenon of the Everglades. Yeah, I really enjoyed the Python hunt. It's a very offbeat, I guess you could say, documentary where you're seeing real life happen right in front of you, and it's none of it's scripted. Um, I really liked it. It's called the Python Hunt, and again, I don't know what kind of distribution it's going to get.
Thanks for bringing this one to the table. It wasn't one that I got a chance to see, but it's one that I'm really interested to see once it gets to whatever that world of distribution looks like.
I think it won either the jury award or the audience award, Will, for documentary, if I remember right. I'm not sure which, but I think it did win something at South by. So, and I think that happened in the midst of me trying to go see it. This is one I actually went to one of a new venue that I hadn't been to before. The Hyatt Hotel opened up a movie venue, and I got to see that, which was kind of cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't get to catch this one either. Unfortunately, this is the reality of film festivals sometimes. Like we all go in and there's usually like some big rock films we all want to see. But then we start to diverge into some of the smaller films and we go on different paths, and but it's also kind of cool because I feel like it maximizes our like exposure, right, to the great stuff. Like if we all just saw every film together, imagine how limiting that would be in terms of the other things we can discover and put on each other's radar and all of your radars out there in listener land as well. So, I always miss having Jim and Will in a screening with me that I see by myself. But my pizza and shake keep me company and
That's
lighten
right.
my mood a little, right?
Yeah. Oh my God, I could go for a
And
shake.
Jim,
Right now.
this was
me
the
too.
special jury award winner for documentary feature.
That's right. That's
Well,
right.
there you go.
Yeah, documentary feature special jury award.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. I can't wait to see this one too.
because it's special.
Get it? All right. Well, I guess it's up to me to close this one out. I'm going to talk about a film that everyone can go see here really, really soon. I think it comes out in 2 weeks, something like that. It is a film called Drop, and you've probably seen trailers for it already. We got to be at the world premiere with the director and the cast, which was kind of crazy, kind of some awesome stuff. Will's letting me know it was April 11th. Will, I had that date in my head, and all of a sudden I was questioning myself. And I'm like, ooh, maybe I have it wrong. I'm not going to mention it. I'll look it up. I should have known. Will, the ultimate guy in the chair, had my back. In any event, you may have seen trailers for Drop. So this is the one where this widower, she's out on a first date. It's been a while. She's at this super fancy restaurant with this guy she met on whatever analog of Tinder they're using in the film. And in the middle of this date, she starts getting basically airdrops. If you're an iPhone user, or drops if you're Android, whatever it's called, from some random person who is apparently within that like 50 feet radius or whatever that drops work in. And the drops are like meme images and messages telling her she has to poison her date and kill him, or the person behind this is going to kill her kid at home. And we see security feed footage of like the kid with like a gun to his head and whatever. In any event, it sounds crazy on paper. It's even crazier on screen. I know that this is probably divisive for you, Jim, and for you, Will, but I actually had a lot of fun this one, especially like as a smart tech person. AirDrop is one of my favorite technologies ever. I use it all the fucking time for everything. And I never thought of it being used to like harass somebody or like force them into killing someone by, drop blackmail. But some fun action sequences in this. A lot of fun mystery, like looking around the restaurant. Who's on their phone right now? I just got this drop.
Who is it?
Is it that guy over there? Is it that girl who's like staring at me like I killed her baby? Like who's doing this? Who's behind it? It was kind of thrilling. The acting's not super great. The male lead is super hot though. He's in the 1923 Yellowstone spinoff show. And we got to see him dressed in some motherfucking leather daddy, leather realness during the Q&A, which was really fun. But this is just, it's a fun popcorn movie. It comes out on April 11th. You should definitely check it out if it kind of sounds interesting or up your alley. But yeah, I love these like bigger premieres sometimes. Like last week we talked about Another Simple Favor. We can see lots of little movies and docs, and those are way better than some of these bigger name ones. But seeing it with that audience and being able to see the Q&As and stuff is really special, and it's really fun, and I'm glad we get to cover it as press for South by. So hopefully that's something that we'll continue to do over the years. But check this one out. It's called Drop.
I didn't see this one, but
That was
Jim, I know
another
you
one
were
that
there.
was. Yeah, it created a lot of buzz, just like a lot of these headliners do, right? Big lines, a huge auditorium full of like, I don't know, somewhere like around 1,100 people, I think, sit in the Paramount. So every action beat or funny line always gets a an amped up, you know, emotion from the audience. So a reaction, and that's the part I like about a lot of these headliners. And this one was fun and evoked quite a response from the audience at several points.
It's good when your audience responds favorably, but we'll see what people thinks when this one comes out here in just a little while. In any event, we've got a whole bunch more films coming out of South by Southwest 2025, but we don't have a lot more time. We're at the end of our time. So we're going to save those and maybe trot a few more of those out for you in an upcoming episode. Death of a Unicorn, Ash. So be on the lookout for that in a couple weeks. But just as a heads up, we are taking next week off. Jim's traveling. I got crazy work stuff happening. Will's got stuff going on, I'm sure. So, like, we're going to take a little breather, but then we'll be back. We'll resume our coverage and talk about two films that hopefully you'll have a chance to see between now and then. Be part of that conversation with us. Between now and then, though, in case people want to get in touch and chat with us about movies or whatever, let's let them know how they can connect. Will, how can people find you where you want to be found?
Look for me on the socials. I'm on Letterboxd at the Movie Bear. That's also where I'm on Instagram as. You can also find me on Facebook. Look for William Lindis. I no longer have an X account, so you can't find me there, which is good because fuck Elon.
I don't want to get political. No, I do. Fuck Elon. Yeah. I'm super on board with that. All right. Well, Will, thanks so much for letting folks know how they can get in touch. For me, you can find me on Letterboxd as well as Blue Sky at iBradPro. On Letterboxd, I've been rating pretty much everything I've seen the last few years, and it's kind of nice. Will, you got me started on that kick. I always feel like I have to acknowledge that is a Will thing. I was so like not consistent with it before, but every once in a while, I just like going back through my diary, and I'm like, okay, 5-star movies. What were they? Over the last 3 years, and then I can sort it, and then bam, it's like the list of like 25 things I loved most. It's so good. In any event, find me on Letterboxd, and feel free to connect with me on Facebook as well. I'm Bradley Harris on Facebook because I'm really tired of being confused with another Brad Harris who is I don't know, doesn't seem like quality people, and I don't want people to confuse us. So look for Bradley Harris on Facebook. And Jim, how can people get in touch with you?
Not Bradley Harrison, Bradley Harris.
I feel like we need
quick.
I feel like we need to explain that. So normally when I introduce the show, I say, I'm Brad Harris and blah, 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 blah. And because Harris and are so close together, it sounds like Harrison. So last week, Jim was like, you've been telling everyone your name is Brad Harrison for like 12 years, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I went back and I re-listened to the intro, and I'm like, oh my God, I have. But it's really funny.
It's probably not.
It's really funny because one of my really good friends when I was growing up was named Brad Harrison, and I was Brad Harris, and so we were Brad Harrison. It was a whole thing. Anyway, it took me back to that, Jim. So thanks for the reminder.
You can do like a Freaky Friday thing. With that, you know what I mean? Like,
there we go.
You could swap existences or something. Anyway, you can find me also on Letterboxd. My handle on there is at JJP Out West. I love Letterboxd. I love coming out of a movie and going right to Letterboxd and giving my rating, if not my review. Sometimes I'll have some things to say about the movie if it prompted a specific response. But yeah. At least as a place to go and log and diary all my movies. I love it. And I'm also on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim. All right, folks. Well, as we mentioned, relative to when we're recording this, of course, being Thursday, March 27th, 2025. We are off next week. If you're listening to this episode like 8 years in the future from now, you probably don't give a shit that we're not going to be here next week. But if you listen week to week, and a lot of our listeners do, and we love you for that. We love that you tune in week after week. We just don't want you to tune in at the normal showtime and be like, where the fuck did the Bears go? Are they hibernating? It's spring. Let's go. Anyway, we're out. We will see you all next time in 2 weeks. Thanks for hanging out with us. Always a pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.